What if you could lead more effectively and go home on time? Welcome to the Lightbulb. I'm Zoe Thompson, leadership and performance coach, and each week I bring you 3 practical insights from my work helping impact-driven leaders transform from reactive to intentional leadership so they can finish work on time and take guilt-free time off, creating success that feels as good as it looks. Let's jump in. Welcome back, episode 13 and the first week back for many of us of 2026. Now, I don't know about you. Oh man, Monday was a struggle trying to get back into the swing of things. Actually, having had the 2-week break made a huge difference, and it was really good to be able to step away from work for a little while, clear ahead with everything that's lined up for this year, but also spend some time with family and friends too. So Monday was tough. And I think nearly everybody that I spoke to has said that the beginning of the week was a bit of a battle. And I've tried to put some social media content out and emails out this week to support everybody with that first week back. I think a lot of people started out on Monday with really good intentions of how they want things to be different this year, different habits, different behaviors to be able to create that balance that they want between work and life, to find that balance and to be more efficient, more effective, to be able to go home on time. And, when that holiday week comes around or 2 weeks comes around, that people can actually log off and step away knowing that the team back in the office have got everything in hand and it's all good to go, and you can just switch off and not have to worry or stress about work, knowing that everything's in hand and just being able to really enjoy that holiday time without any guilt. So let me know. I would love to know how you have got on this week, whether it all worked out as you had planned or whether or not you found by midweek that you were just reverting back to those old habits and behaviors. And if it's something that you are struggling to implement, then get in touch, let me know, and I can let you know either resources that I've got that can help you. And we've got the Blueprint program coming up as well. So that's going to help people. That launches the first week of February. We've got limited spaces. Doors are opening for registration. So if that's something you are interested in, then get in touch and I will see how I can help support you with that. But let's get into our 3 light bulbs, or my 3 light bulbs this week. Like I said, first week back with clients, it's mostly been client work, not had any workshops this week, but I have had one-to-one sessions and the community group calls as well. So let me share with you what's been coming up. Okay, first one, career clarity. When money can't buy alignment. It can buy lots of things, but it cannot buy alignment. And this came up in a one-to-one call this week. It's also come up in different conversations with business owners as well. So not just those in leadership, but actually, money is important. Most of us have financial freedom as part of the things that are important to us for obvious reasons. We need money to be able to live and support the lifestyle that we want. But sometimes that tips the balance. And we find that whilst the income is coming in, everything else is being compromised or sacrificed as a result. So this came up in a client session this week, just unhappy, dissatisfied with the current job, despite being able to manage the workload, despite being able to do the job and do the job well. That wasn't in question. There were a number of issues going on, but ultimately recognizing that despite great income and despite great opportunities, it just wasn't aligning with what is most important to them. So we could have focused on the surface problem, the poor tech, high workload, the meetings that are booked in that are taking up a lot of time. Ultimately, what was creating the discomfort, what's creating the misalignment is a misalignment of values. And ultimately, what we talked about in the coaching session is that is not sustainable, and talking through how long realistically they can continue in this role until they're able to find something that does align much better. And this is the situation for a lot of people right now. There are not a huge number of jobs out there. There's not a huge number of opportunities, which means that actually the upper hand is with the So for those of you who are in leadership, this is going to be really important for you to make sure that you are balancing the needs of individuals. But ultimately, it's very difficult for people to walk away from work because there aren't a huge number of opportunities out there for people to step into. So what that means is that we're not just noticing frustration with current roles, we're noticing an anxious attachment, for want of a better word, of people staying in roles that are out of alignment, that are not fulfilling that sense of purpose, that aren't working for them because of the lack of options elsewhere. And so in the coaching conversation this week, we talked about what's really important. But also, and I think this is the takeaway, this is the light bulb that I want you to consider. You may be in the role that you're in for a period of time. It might be that you're locked into a contract. It might be that actually other opportunities aren't out there for you. So what we focused on in the coaching session, and I think what is helpful to you as a listener, is looking at how you can make some small adjustments to be able to align things where you are and make the best of the situation that you are in. So you're taking away that anxious feeling, that you're feeling stuck, that you're feeling locked into something that you can't get out of, and doing your best to make that work for you. And there are always different options on the table. Now, some of those options might not be viable options for you, but there will be options on the table. And so thinking about how that aligns and thinking about how you can move the role or adjust the role so that it does align better for you can make a huge difference. So we don't want to sacrifice what is most important to us. That's not what life is about. We want to make sure that we do try and adjust things so that we have that work-life balance. Where can we put boundaries in place? Where can we make different decisions for different outcomes that protect our own self-respect, our own self-worth, and actually looking at what's the cost, really looking at the cost of where we are, how things are, and what we need to do to create that change, and what we're willing to sacrifice and what we're not willing to sacrifice. And this is a great time of year to really reflect on that. You know, it's still only a couple of weeks into January, and we know January, I'm sure, has at least 6 or 8 weeks in it. So we've got time. We're still at the very beginning of the year, and there's no cutoff for this. We can ask ourselves these questions. We can make these decisions at any point. Think about how your role and how you're able to work in your role aligns with what's most important to you. What are you willing to adjust and change to bring things into alignment, or where you can't control, what can you influence, and where there might be something that feels more like a sacrifice, how sustainable is that and for how long? So my second light bulb kind of falls into this as well. So my second light bulb from this week is just looking at small changes that we can make. Why small changes can actually be more effective and more impactful than bigger changes. And again, this is something that comes up quite a lot with clients, in that they feel when there's a big issue, it needs big solutions. I don't think that's the case. In the majority of coaching conversations that I have, I don't believe that is true. That's not the case for most people. So we were looking at work-life balance. We were looking at how this individual can do more to bring that balance into their working day, but also overall into the days that they have, rather than trying to compress everything into certain blocks or setting large amounts of time aside for things that are really important. We looked at how they could integrate this into the day. So what we talked about was the logistics of looking at their calendar each day and looking to see where they had 10-minute windows that they could do the things that they know will make them more effective. So where could they have 10 minutes to get up, stretch their legs, move around? Where could they have 10 minutes to go for a walk? Where could they have 10 minutes to walk the dog? Where could they have 10 minutes to read a couple of chapters of a book, or sit and maybe listen to a guided meditation? All things that were on their list of things that they know that they need to do to help to keep themselves well, to look after their health and well-being. Ultimately, where could they fit that in during the day, rather than thinking that they need to get up earlier to get it all squeezed in before the working day starts, or they need to stay up later to get it all squeezed in after the working day has finished and after family commitments have been completed. We looked at where there might be 10-minute windows during the day that help them to be able to show up for themselves, for their health and well-being, without having a negative impact on their work. And actually, as we talked it through, the individual felt that this would have a positive impact on their work because they would be able to be more focused stepping back into the workplace, back into their next meeting or back into their next call because they've had that 10-minute window to look after themselves. We so often look at these commitments in hour-long blocks when actually we have existing gaps that already exist that we can use. And also the benefit, as we discussed in the session, was that actually if we just identify the window but not commit to what goes in that window, we can use a more intuitive approach rather than a more rigid routine to form these habits. So if you've got 10-minute windows locked in during the day, when it gets to that and you're between two meetings, but you've got a 10-minute window, do you need to go for a walk or do you just need to sit quietly and perhaps listen to a guided meditation? What do you need in that moment that is going to help you to protect your mental health and also look after your physical health in the process? So we talked about this in a one-to-one session. It also came up when I met with the Blueprint alumni. We talked about how to protect focus time, but also needing buffer times in our working day as well. So actually starting to feed in these little 10-minute windows, that doesn't mean it's not enough time to do something meaningful. The 10-minute windows can be way more valuable than a 60-minute block that is planned in but never protected and one that you never show up for. Again, you could apply this approach to your leadership, your team check-ins, the informal check-ins, your time to reflect, your time to look at and have a think about something that has been on the list to do. You don't need a full hour. What can you do in 10 minutes? If you can chunk things down into smaller, more manageable tasks, then actually you might find that there's certain things that you can tick off the list and get done in the 10 minutes that you've got. So when you're looking at your routines and your structure for 2026, and I know a lot of you are doing that right now, challenge yourself where you are continuing to look for these 1-hour blocks to plan things out, to work out, to be able to spend that time on the things that are important. 1-hour blocks can be very hard to protect. 10-15-minute windows are much easier to come through. And most of us will probably lose 10 minutes in a day scrolling on our phone or going out and making a coffee and having a snack. Some of those things will be important when they're intentional. Thinking about how you can use those 10-minute windows that you've already got. So think about this in your routine. Think about this in your structure. What is most important and what could be done in smaller windows. So if you hear yourself saying you don't have time, look at where you can have smaller amounts of time and still get some stuff done. Okay, on to the final third light bulb, ownership problem. And this has come up again this week, actually, with the Blueprint alumni, helping support teams to develop accountability, taking responsibility and being able to learn how to prioritize themselves. So this came off the back of a discussion where one of the leaders in the group was sharing that actually a lot of their team are still coming to them to help make the decision around prioritization and what's a priority. And what was great about this was that within the group call, one of the other leaders shared what they were doing and how they were approaching it to be able to support the other leader in the group. And this is what I love about our community, is that we've got leaders from different industries, we've got leaders at different levels, and they're able to support and guide each other. They're not all looking for me to help come up with answers or help to ask them questions to come up with the answers. Quite often they will share their own learning and their own experience to be able to support each other. So what we talked about was having the plan and what the overall priorities are, but helping individuals to understand more what goes into the decision-making process. So when we delegate, we do need to handhold. If it's the first time they've ever done a task, we do need to handhold a little bit more. And so somebody talked about using screen records to be able to show you demonstrating the system or the process that you use. The more clear we can be with the communication, so communicating what the priorities are, also teaching how we make those decisions. So we want to be able to teach the process that we go through in our own minds when we make those decisions and how we prioritize. So the more we answer their questions with just telling them what the priority is, the more we're just cascading information. We're not teaching and we're not giving them the opportunity to learn and to grow. And so what we talked about in the group was how can the leaders there who wanted to support and grow the self-efficacy within their teams to be able to increase the amount that they're taking accountability and responsibility. We talked about having daily catch-ups at the end of the day, Monday planning meetings, a Friday afternoon where that time is protected across the entire department so that everybody in the team knows that this hour every Friday is where people go in and they do their planning, they do their prioritization, and they work things through. And that is then looked at as the culture of the team. This is what we all do. This is how we show up. So we don't want to just delegate it. We don't just want to delegate the tasks. We need to make sure that we're teaching how we go through the decisions, how we decide what's a priority, and how we structure working through that. And also communicating what's most important. So what's essential and what's a bonus, using an 80-20%. So 80%, if you can get this much done within the deadline, then this is what is essential. This is what you prioritize within the tasks. This additional 20% is what refines the outcome of the task, is a bonus. If you're running out of time, then meeting the deadline with the 80% is more important than 100% and missing the deadline. So helping people to understand what do they do in the order that they do it in. You are still giving them the outcome. You are giving them the opportunity to decide how they do it, the order that they do it in. You're making sure that they are very clear, that you are communicating clearly what actually matters. So teaching the hierarchy of the priorities, not just here's your tasks, but here's how to prioritize them if I'm not here, when I'm not here, or so that you don't need to come and ask me. One of the leaders then also shared that they use one-pagers for key projects. So it has a clarity on the scope, it's got the list of what the objectives are, and it's got the list of what the priorities are for each quarter. So that being determined on a one-pager means that the team have that in front of them, that information is there in their sight day to day when they're making decisions, and helps them to get familiar with that. Dependent on your team, dependent on how you like to lead your team, most leaders will find that actually delegation is a big part of your leadership. Being able to not just delegate the tasks out, but using the tasks that you delegate as a way to help your team to evolve and grow. So this isn't about you passing things off. This is about looking for opportunities to develop your team, not just what they need to do and what they're contracted to do, but what they've also got the potential to be able to do that helps them to develop in their roles and develop as individuals, which we know is a huge part of leadership. But when we are delegating, we want to make sure that we are teaching them how and not just the what. Sometimes the why becomes important within that too. So that's the difference between delegation that creates dependency and delegation that creates capability, and helping your team to reach their full potential, but also reducing their dependency on you as part of that. So 3 light bulbs from this week. I mean, there's a lot there. As always, if you've got any questions about the things that I have talked about, please do feel free to reach out and ask me questions. And if there's certain things you would like me to cover that I haven't talked about yet, I appreciate this is episode 13, so it's still early days, but if there's something you think would be really useful for me to talk through, or you've got questions you'd like me to answer, feel free to pop them through and I'll be happy to talk about it and work it through in a way that would help you. Okay, I am going to leave it there. I'm going to head off to the gym, go and get a quick workout in, but I will be back next week for another episode. Now, this week coming up is a busy week. I've got a workshop in London. We've got the in-person workshop in Bristol, Accelerate, which I am very, very excited about. And I've also got some client sessions in there as well. So when it comes to recording episode 14, there's going to be lots in there because this is a busy old week. So make sure you tune back in next time to hear the light bulbs and the lessons from my week. Have a great week yourself, and any questions, feel free to ask. And those are your 3 takeaways for this week. Before you go, ask yourself, what's my light bulb moment from this? And now that I know what I know, what will I do differently? Choose one action, however small, and commit to it. That's how overwhelmed and reactive becomes aligned and intentional. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week on the next episode of The Light Bulb.